Thank you all for having me. It's actually very exciting for me to be here today. I'm going to be talking about a project or a series of them that have been very, very close to my heart for many years. And this is the first time ever, despite the reach that these projects have had globally and within the city, this is the first time ever that I'm giving anyone a look under the hood at what we do and how we do it. So I'm really excited for this to let some people into this. Hopefully some of you have more brilliant minds than mine and can take some of these things a little bit further and protect this essential resource as it's become in Toronto. So I'm talking about radical transparency today in the Toronto housing market, specifically for rentals. For those in the room with me, how many of you rent? Raise your hand. Awesome. Perfect. And for anyone who owns, how many of you have owned with a roommate? None. Okay. You're thinking about it. Maybe. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Very good to know. Just want to know who I'm talking to in the room, and anyone online, feel free to jump in with things as I'm going through. But first, I want to start this off with a little introduction to what I mean by radical transparency. You've all seen the title of what this talk is meant to be. And radical transparency sounds very buzzwordy, very Silicon Valley, very academic, but basically the premise of this is that we've created a space online that allows people to not just connect to find housing, but to connect in trust with each other. And it has taken a lot of trial and error to get to this point that we're at now. And we want to take this mission and this principle that we have for radical transparency further. Our basic principle here is that the more information that both renters and housing providers have, not specifically of each other, but of the space that they're renting, the more housing security that we can forge in the city, which is necessary. One of the things that the city of Toronto and the province of Ontario are very focused on is creating more housing. But what we need to also be focused on is making sure that that housing is secure for the people living in it and that they're not getting evicted for meaningless reasons, that they're able to keep that home and not have that hanging over their head that they could be removed within an instant. And I believe that through Toronto Home Zone, we've been able to use that as a catalyst for a greater movement across the city and for every single person that it touches. Has anyone here been in Toronto Home Zone before? Just want to know how much to. All right, so I'm going to do a little dive on it just to make sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. So Toronto Home Zone is a Facebook group, and it is primarily used to find rentals in the city, to find team ups in the city, and really to connect on rental housing and education. It is 149,000 people. That's renters, newcomers, landlords, you name it, real estate agents, despite my efforts to keep them out. And it is very active. So we get about 20,000 people who are active in the group a day. And we are run by primarily myself, my co-conspirator Cody over there, my husband who listens to my complaints, and we just brought on a new moderator, and we manage this very active group daily with that small and mighty team. We are not quite like any other socially run rental space. Think, even Craigslist, Kijiji, there's no vetting, there's no process necessarily for posting up a rental. We vet every single post that comes through. It is a painstakingly long process. We vet not just the post, but the people posting, people that come into the group. So we have created a very high standard for what ends up into the group itself. If you have your laptop or phone open, you're welcome to try and join the group. I'll approve each and every one of you right now. So looking at, I will remove you afterwards so I can proper vetting. In case you want to take a look at the activity on it. So just in January alone, we approved 362 posts. That's both people seeking housing and people offering, and we declined 461, and that's just this past month alone. We do keep our standards incredibly high, to a lot of people's frustration, but also to their benefit. And that is why we are constantly recommended. People internationally know our name, and they come to us first because they know that they're going to be getting something of quality when they come through our group. I just want to point out there too that if you do want to learn a little bit more about the history of the group itself, On our website, toast.ca, TOHS, torontosiansociety.ca/about. There's like a timeline and a whole bunch of other things in terms of how we got to where we are. Now back to radical transparency. When people are looking for rentals, they're about to make a thousands of dollars investment a year, and they need to know exactly what they're getting into when they are putting that money forward. A lot of platforms do not require enough information on the upfront. A lot of people spend a lot of time looking for housing, and we need to be reducing that barrier. So the first thing that we do is we have a posting format. It's very rigid. And I'll show it to you in a moment. But when people are posting to the group, we ask for very specific information that they have to include, or else they don't get approved. Anyone that's not including it, it's a decline. If they argue with us, we just don't engage. And that's just how we've been able to manage the space. And we've created the expectation that you must be disclosing everything about that space. And again, I'll show you that format in a second so you can see exactly what goes into that. We do manual vetting of every post, so that's human eyes on every single thing that comes through that group, every line. And we'll get to the tasty bits in a second on what that means for everyone in this room. But we make sure that we're not only checking that has the right information, we check it against the Residential Tenancies Act. So we're checking it for legal aspects as well. We're checking the photos to make sure that it is dignified housing. So no shared rooms in a dungeon in a basement, nothing like that. We require photos of windows, of everything, to make sure that everything that goes through there is a space that someone's going to want to live in long term and is of quality. And then data sovereignty. So getting into that tasty bit, because we have this posting format that is rigid and that everyone has to follow, we collect data on everything that comes through. Every single post that we approve enters into our database. And once again, it is a manual and painstaking process, but it allows us to make very informed decisions on how we manage the group and the tools that we're able to build because of that data. It has allowed us to create a very unique data set in the city of Toronto that doesn't really exist anywhere else. We're tracking both both market rentals and what I'm going to talk about in a little bit, the shadow market of rentals between roommates, rentals between owners, sublets, you name it. If it's long term, we also do some short term. We track it. So what our data looks like is for rentals, and you can see on the screen there, I've got that description of what we collect for every single post. You guys are going to get to see what that data set actually looks like as well in actuality. But we get a unit description, that's bedrooms, bathrooms, all of that, how many people are living there, the approval move-in dates, pricing. And pricing, we do require further radical transparency, which I'll get to. Roommate preferences, location, rental terms and rights, especially the poster's relationship, rent control status, very important. The core intersection and the features and utilities of the space. For people seeking, so this is another really exciting part of our data set. We don't just have movement about the rentals. We are able to see what people can afford in the city. And we've been collecting this data for, started in 2023, but I'm not pregnant and it stopped. So that I basically lost all of that data once it stopped, but then I started again in 2020, literally January 1st, 2024. So since then we've been collecting every single data point, and it has become a monster of a data set. So I'm hoping there might be some gears turning in some people's head on that. So yes, this happens on every single post. You can see a little bit of a sample of what the posting format looks like in actuality on the right side of that screen there. What we collect, you can see that we include rental terms so that people know exactly what kind of rental they're moving into. And our data. Like I mentioned, we've been collecting this since 2024, or at least the data that we're currently using. It is thousands upon thousands of rows. And I've kept a lot of this very lightweight and accessible and cost effective. We do not make any money. We are completely volunteer run. We do not collect any kind of revenue. Everything that we do is out of pocket, so we do need to keep things nimble. My husband so rightfully pointed out something before this talk about the security of this data. Once again, it is a very unique data set, and it would be very hard to get it anywhere else or replicate it. To some people's probably concern, this is stored in a Google Sheet. And once again, thousands upon thousands of rows of this is in a single Google Sheet that I myself solely have access to, as well as our new moderator, who I had to make sign a document about accessing it, but that's for another day. You can see from the spread here, it does actually go on a little bit longer. It's cut off here, but we collect a lot in every single post. What's not shown here is we also do collect the original posts as well. So we have the original content. We scrub it for people's names and private information, but everything is there past 2 years and some, and it's now being used to help the rental market and the people that we serve. One of the things that we've realized with Toronto Home Zone is how essential it's become for so many people to find places to live and to feel safe in doing that journey and going through that process. We get requests internationally from people who use Toronto Home Zone as the first place that they literally land, both land, well, say virtually land, when they're looking to come to Toronto. And so they use this and it helps them set their expectation for their entire journey when they're here. And honestly, we love that and we want to continue that and we want to spread it as much as we can. So built upon that data set, we've built a few tools. The first one being our listing filter, and I'm hoping that this is actually going to open the window for us here. Yes, okay. All right, so Facebook, not a great platform. Don't like it. We can't move because we're 149,000 people. So we're stuck there. But what we can do is take people out of the platform as much as we can so that they can also be able to access. There are a lot of people who also don't like Facebook, and they shouldn't have to be forced to be in it to find housing. So we built this on top of that data set that I showed you, which actually allows people to directly access the posts. Oh, I don't think that's going to actually go. We'll see. I hope you're not signed in. Oh, you are? I'm so sorry. I can't get out of here. Okay, let's just, I am so sorry. Anyway, now you can see it brings you directly to the post on Facebook. And so you can filter by all of the fields that you saw in, well, most of the fields that you saw in that data set, to really narrow down your search and be able to find exactly what you need without having to do the infinite scroll through Facebook. And so this actually shows people the last 60 days. I've just found that 60 days is the right number. 90, by the time they get to the 90th day in that set, they're accessing a bunch of dead links. It does not update the links because of the way that Facebook is set up. So yeah, so many challenges with Facebook, but I digress. This is one of the tools that most people access the most, which is become incredible to see how people are searching. We are able to also track data on their searches themselves. So we know what people are looking for and when. We are about to go into our housing peak, which is the summertime. That is when a lot of people are looking for rentals, and that is when we are at our busiest. So if you do end up sparking any ideas and want to get in touch, please do it. Please do it before May. But it is a case where this is something that I'm going to be focusing on over the next few weeks, and making this a little bit more robust, because once it does start getting a lot of traffic, it gets really slow. We don't want that, of course. But it is kind of like become the bread and butter of the group. Once we released the first version of this, which was admittedly a Google Sheets embed, and then it became an Airtable, and then I developed this tool afterwards. Yeah, once we put it out, there were a lot of people that actually just stopped going to the Facebook group until they went to this tool first. So we saw activity there drop, activity here rise. And to me, that's a good thing, because I don't think that we should be forcing people to be on Facebook if we can prevent it. There's a little ad for this. How can I get back to okay. Just getting back into my side. So that's our listing filter, and that is live. So as posts are approved, it updates automatically into that tool. We also have a live data dashboard for insights. All right, it's not fun. Anyway, it's exactly what it sounds like. We take insights from our data set and they update live as posts are approved. That actually goes further back. It shows 120 days of data and insights, and it shows whether things are going up, whether they're going down. We do actually have a section towards the bottom of that, if anyone's able to access it. I'm sorry that it's not coming up now. That actually shows trends over the last 2 years of data that we've collected. And I found that that's where people are putting the most of their eyeballs to see, are things coming up? Are they going down? Is this the right time to get into the rental market? And the last piece here isn't actually connected to our data. It's a term finder. And I'll actually get into that in a second. But that is part of our educational piece in that people can, let's see if this one will work. Yes, it will. Awesome. So people can very quickly understand what kind of rental terms they either need to be looking for or what kind of rental terms that they need to be offering. People do get quite confused about Toronto's rental term system, I should say Ontario's, especially if they're newcomers. We have found, especially from places like Sydney, Australia, where they have the term sublet as well. Ours means something completely different. So I have found that from Australia, I get the most messages of, hey, I signed this thing and it's not what I thought it would be. How do I get out of this? And so that is a huge problem for us, for them, for everyone involved. So, we've started to develop tools that are part of the system and part of the process of them moving through their rental journey that really help to target it before it becomes a problem for them. You guys are so quiet. It's making me laugh. Awesome. Okay, and so there's just a little note there on, what I use to build things. It's very, like I said, lightweight. It is very scrappy. I am very self-taught in a lot of the development that I do. And more recently, being the mom of a toddler, I generally just don't have the time. So when I find that there is a key issue that we need to be tackling, I do just try to get in there. I have become a vibe coder, sorry. But it does help me to do things really quickly, and things that used to take me 6 months to put out to the group when there's an issue now takes me maybe 2 to 3 weeks, which has been incredible to be able to do without much of a team or any kind of backing. So one of the greatest influences that we've had in this city is in Toronto's shadow market. This is something that I'm incredibly passionate about because it does make up a huge amount of at least our market share. 33% of our rental posts that come through belong to this shadow market. What does that mean? It's people that are not protected by Ontario's rental laws. And why is that important? It means that they are left without any kind of recourse when things go south. When they are facing issues, they have to rely on small claims court, which isn't the greatest to navigate, and it is also costly for them. Whereas if you're protected by the RTA, then you have those costs covered. It is part of our system. And, you can say what you want about Toronto's and Ontario's landlord and tenant board. They do provide quite a bit of protection for tenants, landlords too, I know. But it does help to balance scales a little bit. In this space, it is a complete legal vacuum. And so we try to create essentially a adjacent system for this type of rental. First of all, through that radical transparency with full rent disclosure. This is something that we saw in the early days of Cody and myself running the group of Toronto Home Zone. In a situation where a tenant is sharing their housing with an occupant, basically someone not on the lease, there is a great opportunity for exploitation, and it does happen. It still happens. It's something that we do see. And so one of the things that we started to enforce was transparency around pricing. You have to list your total rent for your entire unit along with the room that you're offering. It is sometimes a little bit funny to see that someone will miss that in our posting format. They'll submit their post. We see that they don't include it. They come back to us asking why their post has been declined, and they resubmit, and suddenly the rent is lower for that room. It happens more often than you would think. For anyone in the group, you can see edit history on posts. So I do encourage you to do that if you're searching for a rental in a Facebook group to see how that person has edited their posts, and just, be careful of those things. But we try to catch it before that even happens. The second thing that we have is our roommate agreement. So this is actually one of the most popular things on our site for some reason, used across Canada, even in jurisdictions where it's not really relevant, but it really does help to create a little bit of a binding contract between the people that aren't covered by the RTA. And they can use that in small claims court if they need to. Just in the past 2 months, we had a case come through where someone signed a rental agreement where the leaseholding tenant told them that they were covered by the RTA in the wording of the agreement. All kinds of problems with that, of course. And this person actually had to find a place to live very, very quickly because that situation went sideways, and they only learned then that they weren't covered by the RTA. So we really try to get ahead of that by making sure that there is full disclosures in this roommate agreement and everyone knows what kind of field they're playing on. And then our term translator, I'll just skip that. That could be a whole other talk. But as I said, people from Australia constantly getting confused by our terms. So, and I'll give you guys access to this page. We are creating a tool where you can basically translate your city's terms into what it means when you land in Toronto. If you want to be a part of this project, I will gladly just hand it off to you because it's, yeah. Anyway, I love Dublin's rental laws, and I actually love Sydney's rental laws. I feel like of most of the ones that I've looked at, they are some of the most robust, and I do hope that in the long term, projects like ours help to create the foundation and the evidence that the people sitting in rooms and convening need to actually do something about the gaps that we have in our system. Okay, and now for my thesis here, finally getting to it. We're really trying to shift the demand in the rental housing market. We're going beyond creating greater access to housing. We're going beyond, creating power through information. We are fundamentally changing what people expect when they come and they're trying to find a house in the city. And we are helping them to demand dignity in the housing that they seek for themselves. People hold us accountable constantly whenever we slip in these values. And so we put it into everything that we do. We've been yelled at, we've been harassed, we've been, if you search us on Reddit, I avoid Reddit now, honestly. It's not pretty, but by holding fast to this, we've created this space, this very unique space, these very unique opportunities to create better housing in the city, longer term housing, secure housing. And I'm tired of doing it alone, so you guys can help. Yeah, that's it.
So it's that you mentioned radical transparency, and how much of your data you want to open up so that people would be more willing to contribute to the project.
Depending on how you want to contribute, I'm open to opening all of it up. To be quite frank, it is a huge data set and there's so much that can be done with it. There's so many ways that we've tried to play with it, and there are very brilliant minds, I'm sure, in this room and online and beyond that can do great things with it. One thing I will say is we will never sell the data. We've been propositioned multiple times. It's never going to be for sale. It's never going to be for profit. And again, like I could give you access to anonymize. I will remove like the full post, the names, that sort of thing. And I could give you access tonight.
Do we have a question online?
Yes, we do. We have a question from Alec.
Hello. I have so many possible questions, but just one is you now have like a couple of years of stats. Have you found that there's any difference compared to other real estate organizations or agencies like CMHC that publish things like average rents?
Yes, and that's because we force it. So in 2022, we set a pricing cap because rent was just too high. And because of the authority that we have in that space, we're actually just able to do that and people comply. So people will submit posts that are above. We send it back and so do they with a lower price. So because of the sheer size of the group, because of the trust of it, we've been able to do that. So our averages always come back lower because they can't go higher. And we use our data to inform our pricing caps as well.
Thanks, that's awesome.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much, Neil.